Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, the Halo Builder. Today we are doing our first, in quotations, Kerbal Space Program mission. Now, in this mission, as you might have seen by the title or the thumbnail, we are doing a tutorial of how to easily, without glitches for the most part, how to easily without glitches get to the planet of Duna. Now, if you don't know, Duna is the Kerbal Space Program equivalent of Mars in real life. And the thing with Kerbal Space Program 2, which is what we're using, is it's really janky. There's a lot of glitches, and the wobbles. The rockets tend to be really wobbly, and it's just a nightmare to play for the most part. Now, since they released it, they have put out a few patches, and the game is much better now, but it still needs a ton of work. But this rocket design, which I am currently building on your screen, is bulletproof, idiot-proof, and kraken-proof. And so this is the best way to avoid any sort of glitches that you might come across while you are flying to the mission, or like to Duna. So basically what we're starting with is really simple. You just take the standard 3-seater Kerbal pod, which is modeled after the Apollo space pod. You take a medium-sized fuel tank adapter, which converts from medium size to a small size fuel tank. Make sure these are all Methalox so that the engines that we're using on the landing stage, which is what we're building right now, the landing stage, can actually use it. If you use hydrogen, that's for nuclear engines, you can't use that. And just methane, those are for jet engines, so you can't use that as well. So make sure these are Methalox engines. So after that, make sure you put a heat shield on. I know that the game doesn't really have a heating mechanic when you enter atmospheres yet, but just get into the habit of putting heat shields and everything, so when they do add it, it is already in your practice, so you don't accidentally burn up. And so really easy, as you saw before, just put the ladders, press 2 to get the adjuster knob, and then you can just adjust it so that it fits perfectly. Then put 4 of the separators on the sides, and then you're gonna put the 4 boosters on the edge. So these boosters are gonna help with landing the craft and also takeoff and circularization on Duna, because you cannot, I mean, it's really hard to land the Interplanetary stage, which is the thing that gets you from Kerbin, which is Earth, to Duna, which is Mars. And right now you can see me struggling because I forgot to build an Interplanetary stage. And I'm like, because before I do these missions, I obviously go out and before recording, I go through and build the rockets, just try them out a bunch, and then I find one that works, and then I go and build it on camera. And so I realized that I forgot to put in the Interplanetary stage after looking at a screenshot of the rocket. And I'm like, so I gotta do that real quick. So this is where you put in the big hydrogen tank ball. This is gonna be super fuel efficient. Get 10,000 delta V out of it, which is more than enough to get you pretty much anywhere in the Kerbal system. Kerbal is the sun. And then you take the big nuclear engine. Well, I mean, it's kind of nuclear, but it's a hydrogen engine. And then you take that and then you put it on the bottom. Make sure you put the 4 solar panels. rocket booster, that is bad because you will it will not decouple once you stage, and then you're left with a stuck together rocket. So basically we are in the tracking station right now. There is no mod called, like, I used to use Kerbal alarm clock for KSP1. There's no like that kind of function. You can't really put in give me a transfer window from this planet to this planet, which was really useful, but you can't do that now. But as I'm showing on screen, while to get a transfer window with Duna, all you have to do is make sure that the line from Kerbin to the sun to Duna, that the angle it forms, the line, is around 44 degrees. I was about to say Fahrenheit. No, just 44 degrees makes an angle between, I'm going to say Earth, Kerbin and Duna. And that angle is what makes you the transfer window. And because there is no current like Kerbal alarm clock system, that is what you need to do. I will post a link to a map that someone has made off of Reddit. It's a really good map that shows you how much delta V you need to get to places, as well as the transfer window angles. So that is very beneficial. Okay, I wasn't looking at my screen and we already launched. But yeah, so this stage is an SSTO, and as you can see, no rocket wibble or wobble, because it's so structured, and because we put struts everywhere, it does not wobble around, and because it's not too long and all the parts are proportional, so it's like the big thing, it doesn't go into that tiny engine, or like a tiny, like you don't go from a small to a giant. The rocket, that decreases rocket wobble while you're flying, and so as you can see, there is no rocket wobble. So for increased simplicity, because this is aimed for beginners or people who are frustrated, we did not put detachable solid rocket boosters, because it kind of looks like the SLS. That was what I was going for, but we did not put detachable solid rocket boosters to the sides because, well, you don't really need them, because it has enough delta V to get you into a pretty good orbit, almost orbit trajectory, and then you have more than enough delta V to circularize. As you can see by looking in the bottom right corner, we have 12,090 units of delta V, so we can literally go anywhere and back if we really wanted to. If we really wanted to, we could probably go to Joule, circularize there without aerobraking, and then come back if we wanted to. So now we are burning to make sure we get into an orbit and we don't fall down into the atmosphere, and I would say burn up, but there is no burning up, so just die from aerodynamic forces. But yes, if you didn't know, according to physics, if a orbit is actually a perpetual free fall, so as you're going around, you're constantly falling, but you're going fast enough sideways that you don't have enough time to fall. Okay, so I quickly switched to the tracking station, then back to try and get like engine sound back, because I had some really like engine sound issues, because I was trying to record the music and the engine sound, and like the engine sound wasn't working. Okay, so if you want to get to Duna, put your maneuver node on the dark side of the planet, because that will make you go out. So it will create your new orbit around the sun so that your apoapsis is higher. But if you put it on the light side of Kerbin, that will actually bring it down. So if by putting your maneuver node on the bright side of Kerbin, that's how you get to places that are below. Well, when I say below, I mean closer to the star than Kerbin is. So like Eve, I was about to say Dres isn't there, but Eve, Moho, and the star, if you want to get to the star. But yes, just there's a really nice function that I like now. There's a green button with the 3 arrows on top of the maneuver node, and that is like when you click that, it automatically warps you to 30 seconds within the maneuver node, and that's really nice because you won't accidentally overshoot your maneuver. Now, when I'm actually burning, as Matt Lown once said, make sure that once you're like about to finish burning, just turn off the maneuver node and then just watch it finish like on its own. Just kind of eyeball it, because that way you won't get messed up between the maneuver node lines and your own lines. That will just make it better. Okay, so now we have reached interstellar space, not interstellar, interplanetary space. And basically what you want to do is adjust your orbit so that when you come into the planet, it becomes much like you don't just randomly go somewhere, which is a thing they fixed. So as you can see, that's my predicted trajectory. One of the bugs that was, I mean, it wasn't a bug, they just didn't add it, but one of the things that was wrong with the game originally was that you could not see what your predicted trajectory was, which made it really hard to do any sort of mission beyond low Kerbin orbit. So this is, you just put it around halfway to Duna, and then, or like whatever planet you're going to. I'm just gonna say Duna from now on because it's a Duna mission. Just put it halfway to Duna, and then play around with the maneuver node by pressing the radial out, radial in, and then like the triangles, pulling them out, prograde, retrograde, forward, backward, and then that will make it so that your orbit will go in a certain direction and make it nice and neat like mine is right here. Now, as you can see, the delta V required, if you put this in the middle, the closer you are to the middle, the less delta V required. As you can see, it only requires 5 delta V. And during the construction, you may have seen, I did not mention, make sure you're putting the RCS tanks, or the RCS thrusters and the monopropellant tanks everywhere, so that once you're not in interstellar space, by the way, once you're doing these fine maneuvers, do not use RCS, because that will mess up your entire maneuver node, because even the slightest touch, as you can see, 5 delta V will change the entire trajectory. So there we go, it got pretty close, and then it's not as good as I wanted it to be, so I just kept burning a little bit. And now I changed to RCS, and then I was just playing around with the K's, HN, J, K, I, L, and that is what controls the RCS thrusters, and just play around with those until you get the orbit to be nice and neat, because that will make your life easier. It doesn't really matter what way, because usually people recommend that you come in with the same spinning, like that you will be orbiting in the same direction that the planet is spinning. Now, I did do that because I'm just a little experienced in the game, but you honestly don't have to. It's not a necessity. The only necessity, which I will mention later if I remember, which is why I'm going to mention it now as well, is to make sure that when you take off again from the surface, make sure that your new orbit from when you take off is you're orbiting in the same direction that the planet is rotating. Because by trying to leave the planet with from the direction, like if you're rotating the wrong direction, orbiting the wrong direction, it's going to be really hard and cause a lot of trouble, because you'll be orbiting the wrong way around the sun, and then your paths won't line up with the planets really easily, and so it's a giant mess. But for coming in and landing, really no biggie. As you can see, we already started our retrograde burn to circularize around the red planet. One thing I definitely can give this game is that its graphics are much better than KSP ones were, even with a bunch of graphics. And what I like about them is that they're not super realistic to the point where it's over realistic. You can still see that it's a game and it's still arcadey, and I personally really like that. So now that we have our rough orbit, we're just gonna time warp around back to the periapsis, and then just continue circularizing until we get our nice neat orbit. So this mission actually took me quite a long time to make. It well, I did the actual going and testing it out, which took about a day in its own, and then I just faded there because it was there was no glitch actually. It was just me skipping the pointless tons. I did it because I'm really a perfectionist. Circularization burns that to make it nice, and the reason I'm not in the map screen right now is because under the nav ball you can actually see what your periapsis and apoapsis are, which are your highest and lowest points. But basically, yeah, this mission did take me quite a while. I took a day to do the trying out. It took me 2 days to actually record this because I needed to re-record a bunch of things, and just 2 days to record, and then it took me 3-4 days to edit. I mean, I'm on my 5th day now of editing, roughly, but we are now descending, making sure that while you are descending, as I actually missed it, when you're doing your descent burn, make sure that it is in a relatively flat area. So don't, for your first time going to Duna, or if you're not really experienced with landing on Duna, just go to a place that seems flat, not a bunch of craters, because that way it will be really easy to land. So now we are entering. Just point your rocket on SAS to retrograde. I turned on a little bit of RCS just to help me a little bit. Now, one problem when I was playing as a beginner was slowing down fast enough. I wouldn't slow down fast enough, and then the parachutes wouldn't have enough time to open properly, which is why we have the aero brakes. As you can see, I'm using them right now. They help you quite a lot because they slow you down to manageable speed that your parachutes can actually open. Because if you're going too fast, the parachutes won't open because it will tear them off like they would in real life. And so by having the air brakes, you will slow down and let the parachutes open at a safe distance from the ground, which will let you land much easier, as you can see. Now I'm just keeping them deployed. You don't have to, but I'm keeping them because it looks better. Now I deployed the engines on the bottom. As I said, you will need to use them for landing because a bunch of parachutes aren't enough to slow this down. I mean, if you add more, obviously it will be, but I didn't add as many as I want to. I think I added 18 drogue chutes and 20 actual parachutes. So really, this is not going to impact your fuel at all. Just a little bit of gentle touching. I landed a bit too hard, and so this is the only problem with the rocket as far as I can see, but you really can't avoid it. Is anytime you try to land with parachutes, the game freezes. As you can see, this is I cut it out, but there was about a 2-minute freeze there, and my computer is good. Like, it's not a bad computer. It's an Alienware massive gaming desktop or PC, and it still froze. And so it's just they have to optimize the game so that the parachutes don't instantly lag out and just kill your game every time that you try and land, because it just needs to. It's like every individual one is like, because for every individual one is going to calculate, is the vehicle safe? Yes. Is it no longer falling? Yes. Can I cut this parachute? Yes. Let's cut the parachute. Cuts the parachute. And then for every single one, it has to do that. And once you have a ton of parachutes, it's going to do that. So now that we've landed, I deployed the solar panels, and let's begin descending. So basically on EV8, what happened is, for some reason, I can't, like, if you're doing this, and for some reason I can't get from one ladder to the other. The problem is unlike in the previous game, like, it was much easier. The Kerbals could flow from one ladder to the other. In this game, unfortunately, it's not as easy to get them to flow. So basically, what you do is just press F. Like you see, he's stuck right there. Pressed F. He's going down. Can't go down anymore. Pressed F. Goes down, and then press F. And by pressing F, you're basically telling your Kerbal to let go of the one that's holding right now and grab on to the one that is below it or above it, which in turn will make you be able to go down the set of ladders that you have created. And so now we have our last Kerbal on EVA, and then we're going down. One of the things I was interested about was the sand. Actually, the sand colors vary, unlike in the previous game. I mean, you could find variation in the sand colors, but it was much less than here because and the layers in the sand actually have like waves and much more detailed. As you can see, if I zoom out a little bit, there's the nice sunrise over the Dunian sky. But basically, once I zoom out a little bit, you'll be able to see that the place that we're in currently has a little bit of darker sand, and then if you wanted to, you could go to a place with a little lighter sand or even darker sand. So yeah, this is me just posing for pictures, and then we're gonna plant our flag, and the site name is gonna be Duna Landing. Very, very creative. I'm just gonna narrate. It is here where Kerbal kind has first ventured, yes, beyond the reaches of our home world. Period. No period. System. Comma. Double comma. Kerbin. No, colon. Yes. The one thing I don't like about this is that we look at the, and then you see the problem is that the writing text is limited. I wish they could make the text a bit, text box a little bit bigger like it was in the previous game, but there we go. And then we plant our flag. One thing is really interesting that I found is because I selected the middle Kerbal, and I'm like controlling the middle Kerbal right now. I selected the middle Kerbal to plant the flag, but for some reason one of the other Kerbals always plants the flag. So if you have like three, oh yes, as you can see in the top right corner, there was a nice red sand. There we go, top of the screen. But yeah, for some reason, once you tell your Kerbals to deploy a flag or plant a flag, there's like, no, you do it, and then they have someone, like the person you actually selected to deploy it, will actually deploy it, which I find is rather interesting. But yes, you can't really use your pack here. It would actually help you a little bit, like it should in theory be able to work, but you could get it to work in the last game, and it's really janky, but you can get it to work in this game, but you can't get it to work from a jump. So this is me just wandering over to one of those rocks. What I really like is that the rocks are much more detailed. They're much like the scientific expansion rocks out of the previous game, but they are as detailed, because before, if you don't have the scientific expansion for the previous game, all the rocks are kind of bland, just ovals sitting on the surface, and so it's just kind of pointless. But one thing that does continue is that the rocks are non-corporeal, so you can just go and walk right through them, which is totally realistic. But then again, it is just a game. I had to take a little drink of water. It's for those of you who have watched my channel for quite a long time, you may remember the water joke. Oh, and so I appear to have kicked something below my desk. But yes, so now I'm just kind of looking around for views. This is me walking back. Currently, there is nothing to do on the surface of the planets beyond just walking around and planting your flag. There is no science, there is no things you can set up. It's just you can get out, plant your flag, and that's it. You've exhausted all your activities, which is a shame, because I feel, because they have science in like some stage. Like, I've seen people play it in the before stage, and I feel like they should release it so that you can at least try and play it, because it would make going places so much more fun, because you would actually be able to do stuff. The one thing I could see me doing on the surfaces of planets more would probably be making a rover and driving around, but then again, there is really no reason besides sightseeing, because you can't you can't scan for resources like you could in the previous game, and you can't really do anything. So that's that. So here I saved my game, and now we are taking off. One thing I made sure to do before, which I actually cut out because it's kind of repetitive, you don't have to do this because this rocket has just so much delta V left in it. Like, as you can see, like it started with over 5,000 delta V when it took off. But you can brute force your way. But what I did is I just I went back into the tracking station. And then I did another transfer window. So these people have now been here for 2 years, 241 days, 3 hours, 16 minutes, and 30 seconds starting now. Okay, so now that you are taking off, you can just use full throttle takeoff. The rocket is a little bit weird on, a little bit iffy to control because the engines, gimbals are all fighting with each other, but overall it is really easy to control. If you want to make it even easier to control, add some fin stabilizers, so like add some wings to the bottom, and then that will make it much easier to fly. Not that it's hard to fly as it is. And so one thing that you want to do when you take off is on the nav ball there is the north line, which is the line, like if you're starting, because it will point up and you'll see that all the 4 directions. The north line is the one that is like orangey red, and that line is the one that points north. That's why it's called the north line. But to get into the right orbit around Duna, or like around Duna specifically, is you need to fly to the left of the north line, or at least in this craft you do, because that way you gotta make sure that you're orbiting the same direction that the planet is rotating, which will make it easier to go back. If you made some craft and it's not to the north line, all you can easily always do is just go to the map and then go from side to side, turn your rocket. You have more than enough delta V to do that. And then your orbit has to be going to the right, so it has to be extending over to the right as you're going. If you're flying up and then you see your trajectory going to the left, like getting longer and longer, and your apoapsis is getting higher, and then your trajectory is saying that you're going to land somewhere to the left, that is bad. You're going the wrong way. Turn around and make sure you're going the right way. And make sure if you're going to do this, make sure you do it early, because you want to check. Make sure you catch it early if you are going the wrong way, because if you do end up going the wrong way around, it is a very expensive maneuver. I think this will have enough to fix it, but it's really expensive and annoying maneuver, expensive in terms of fuel, to change your orbit so it's going the right way. And if you don't have enough fuel left over for some reason, you're just gonna have to deal with a really annoying way of getting back to Kerbin with no fuel, or not no fuel, but going the wrong way around, and you're just gonna have problems lining up your intersection, which is really annoying in my opinion. I want to make this as easy as possible, so make sure that you are going in the right direction, which is your thing has to be going right, your trajectory line has to be going right. And so here you can see one of the glitches actually is the coupling fairing, which is because it's attached under the heat shield, is not rendering, so the capsule is kind of just floating on top of the fuel tank. So that's really interesting. But yes, this burn is pretty long, but it will get you there. Again, just shut it off. As you can see, I just shut it off before we just finished the maneuver. Just turned off the maneuver and just finished by eyeball, and that really helps. Now this view, I think it was my favorite out of the entire mission. Me leaving Duna was probably my favorite view of the mission. I have bunch of screenshots of this mission. As of right now, I don't know what my thumbnail is, but this is, I don't know, contending for first. So yeah, one of the only issues I found with like that would glitch out this rocket is actually the launch. So like you would press launch and then the rocket would just spontaneously fall apart upon touching the landing pad. If that happens to you, revert to VAB, vertical assembly building, and just press the launch button again, and within 3 tries you will be fine. Like that's the only glitch I found that actually affected this rocket. None of the other known glitches that are still around and haven't been patched at have affected this rocket. Because I did try another rocket actually, and it was really wobbly. So the wobbly rockets are still around, and this rocket is not wobbly whatsoever. So if you make it correctly, it's not wobbly whatsoever. And so here we are making our path home. Once again, it doesn't really matter like how you enter, because you're just gonna hit the atmosphere and slow down immediately. Like, you're not gonna circularize around the planet. You're not trying to land anywhere specific. But yeah, the maneuver for this was a little bit expensive, 52. But then again, we do still have over 2,000 meters per second left. So considering if this engine was technically powerful enough, we could theoretically get it into orbit from Duna again. So that's really nice. And this is me playing around with the maneuvers, just trying to get the best path possible. And now you don't really have to do this, you can actually just enter it through anyway, but just get it relatively close to the planet's surface from your line. One thing I actually found that was easier to do is just to time warp your vessel to roughly halfway between you and your intersection, and then zoom in real close and then place your maneuver node a little bit away, because the 2 lines sometimes like interlap, and it's really sometimes because it will want to put your maneuver node on the wrong side. As you can see, I'm just lowering my periapsis right now, and it will want to put your maneuver node on the wrong orbit, and so that won't tell you what you're actually going to change. So just time warp to roughly halfway, zoom in, click, and then add your maneuver node to right over there. Okay, and so we are about to land. So again, this mission really simple. You don't really there's really foolproof. I mean, you have the legs technically will be able to land with just the parachutes. It's just make sure you're also quick saving all the way along, because if your computer is like slightly worse, it could just randomly glitch because it's not keeping up with the game optimization. And so here we are entering the atmosphere, and this is, like I said, it doesn't really matter where you're gonna enter the atmosphere, because you're just gonna go down and land anywhere. And so make sure that you add the 2 drogue chutes that are going to deploy first. This is important actually, because it doesn't matter which way to make it easier, it doesn't matter which way you enter, where you land, but it does matter that you add the drogue chutes if you're going to do that, because if you don't set it up that you land somewhere flat, somewhere low, like the ocean, as you can see, they're extremely getting flipped around right now. But if you don't land somewhere low, somewhere in the ocean, if it ends up dropping you in the mountains, you need to deploy the drogue chutes first, so you slow down enough to deploy the main chute, and then you can actually land instead of just crashing into the mountains. And there we go. We have arrived back at the planet Kerbin. We are in the water. As you can see, the water is also slightly glitched at, because it's not actually touching, we're just floating above the water. But there you go, a really simple rocket to build, really simple mission to fly to Duna. If this is your first mission beyond the Kerbal system, so beyond the moons, beyond Minmus, beyond Mon, really simple vessel to try out. But other than that, if you like this, please subscribe. I'm really trying to get to 1,000. But have a great rest of your day.